Time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre de Vera, steady dropping knowledge. Over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO video show. Hey.
Hey, welcome to the very third episode of the SEO video show. I'm live today with a special guest, legendary Bill Slawski. I will be going through, my name is Paul Andre de Vera. I am the host of the SEO video show. I found this show for enterprise SEOs to meet each other, create a community, and help each other find SEO gigs and learn how to get more into the SEO type of business. I will be interviewing Bill later on today to see how he got into the SEO business, and let's go on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Why did Tiger Woods start studying SEO? To get his #1 ranking back.
All right, let's start with Google News. Our news today, we start off with Google Webmasters. They announced today that they are going to move the mobile first indexing, which has been extended to March 2021. It was supposed to go live sometime in September. So you have some time now to make sure your robots and alt text tags are fixed for the mobile first indexing. And speaking of robots, we actually had an update from the Google Webmasters. We had where you should be careful of what you update in your robots file. Let's go ahead and see what they're saying over there.
We need to be able to access CSS files so that we can properly render your pages. This is critical so that we can recognize when a page is mobile friendly, for example. CSS files generally won't get indexed on their own, but we need to be able to crawl them.
There you have it. So make sure you don't block your CSS files, or else it'll be hard for Google to know if you are mobile. Make sure you go ahead and do that. So now we go on to the next story. Grow with Google. You know, this show is based for enterprise people who want to, or any digital marketers who want to get into SEO and digital marketing. Recently, this week, Google actually put out a new digital program certifications, which will help people.
It's not every day that Google makes its own.
Sorry about that. Okay, so this is where we want to get more in touch and develop our skills. You know, you don't need a degree nowadays to get like a technical job. And Google Career Certificates launched 3 new programs, digital programs, which I believe costs about $49 a month for about 6 months. I mean, that's not bad. It's better than it beats college tuition. If you want to get into SEO and other digital marketing positions, check this out. It's on Grow with Google. Next story on my list is web stories. Are you guys using WordPress? If you're using WordPress, Google created a plugin. And they don't usually create plugins, especially for third parties, and they did one for WordPress on web stories. Let's bring up the guys from Income School and see what they had to say about it.
WordPress plugin. The reason they've done it is because they really want publishers to create content in this new format that kind of replicates what an Instagram story or a TikTok video is. They're short, snackable content of between 5 and 30 pages of just showing information in a very quick to get kind of vertical format. And when you see this happening, Google is saying, we're going to put this format in Google search and we want it a lot more, but not many people have made content in this format before. And so the situation that we're about to have as creators is Google is going to open up this format, start displaying it on the SERPs, and there's no competition. So we're really excited about this new plugin. We want to show you exactly how to implement it on your site.
There you go. If you want to learn more about this plugin. The guys over at Income School have a great tutorial on this. It's something that I think we should all pay attention to. I mean, Google doesn't put out some software like this for us to use and take advantage of. Next, are you optimizing for Google Discover? Gary Ilias tells us how on the Edge of the Week podcast.
Gary, this was really teed up for you. What are your thoughts about the inclusion of EAT into Google Discover as well?
I think it's actually really helpful for publishers. I think many don't realize that EAT can play a role in Discover as well, just like it does in search. If you think about it, in Discover, you also want to discover high quality and relevant and authoritative articles, and that's what EAT helps with. The content is that or the results that are surfaced there are coming from our web index and image index. So why not apply EAT there as well? Of course we do, but that was not public knowledge. And we just updated our documentation to say that it is part of Discover as well. And you can use the search quality raters guidelines to, figure out what EAT is and how you can improve your EAT.
There you have it. I believe in EAT. I personally use EAT as a framework as when I optimize my pages. I optimize it to YouTube. I'll follow the EAT process and factors of EAT. As a matter of fact, if you check this out, I applied everything on a video. If you search YouTube ranking factors, I've studied patents, I'll be interviewing someone today who've inspired me on studying patents. And I put this all in a video. I laid it out, and I did everything in there. And within about 7 days, following EAT and just looking at patents, I was able to get this video ranked where it's like 100,000 views within the top 10, with only about 50 views. So take a look at that. It's not about views. Let's see how I do that over there, and I will go on to the next story. Speaking of YouTube, we've actually had.
Okay, so Google's finding answers to questions people might have, and including rich content with those answers. And in some cases, that's video.
Yes, and they're actually taking the snippets out of the video by using, when you, some people on their video, they'll put like a timestamp and say this is this and all that stuff. Well, they're actually using those to find the snippets in the recordings.
So the timestamps are sort of key to that.
They're a piece of it.
There you go. There's a quick knowledge bomb over there on how to get some video snippets. That's pretty cool. I mean, this brings me to my guest today. This was actually taken from his show. He actually has over 250 episodes within the past 5 years called the Bill and Eamon's Bogus Hangout. He has more than 25 years of SEO experience. Bill is the foremost expert on Google patents as related to SEO. Currently the director of SEO research for GoFish Digital. Bill is the editor of SEO by the Sea, a prominent search engine optimization blog, where he is the author of over 1,000 posts. That's a lot. Bill's experience includes Fortune 500 brands and some of the largest websites in the world. Let's go ahead and give Bill Slawski a warm welcome. Bill, welcome to my show. How you doing?
Good. It's good to be here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I mean, this is my third show. I appreciate you coming on. I mean, I'm just starting out, and having someone legendary like you is very fortunate of me to have, and I totally appreciate that.
Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere, and it's good to get the ball rolling and rolling fast.
Yeah, so I mean, tell me about how the Bill and Eamon show, like how long ago that started about 5 years, how'd that come about?
That came about. A friend of mine, Eamon Johns, and I were both administrators at a website called Creative Site Forums, which unfortunately is no longer online.
Mm-hmm.
But Eamon's been doing SEO longer than I have. And he's been a bit of a mentor to a lot of well-known people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's see, Rand Fishkin is one of them. I'm another.
Mm-hmm.
He has an extensive marketing background. And when I got out of law school, I went to work for a court for 14 years. I didn't go into SEO.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get into SEO until a friend who needed a job, hated his job, said, I want to do something different. I suggested creating an incorporation business in Delaware. And he said, okay, well, that's good, except that would require that I have a website. And I said, that's okay. I picked up a Learn HTML in 2 Weeks book and built a website in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because you said a short time ago, you don't need a degree to be an SEO. You can learn stuff and apply it.
So with this show, was it inspired by Bill and Ted, who's coming out with a new movie?
It was before there were plans for a new Bill and Ted movie, but it was based on the old one. Yeah.
Excellent!
There you go. I knew it. I actually watched the very first one, and I saw some references to the movie, and I was like, oh, I gotta play that. So let's get into how did you get into deconstructing patents? I mean, you've inspired me. I've been reading blogs, your blog, for quite some time now, and then I gave my first conference presentation sometime last year, and I was like, let's see. I mean, why should people believe me? When I was giving presentations, like, who's this guy? It's like, but if I was able to back my findings up with patents, it becomes more believable. And so I'm curious, like, what made you get into patents?
So part of the inspiration there for me was in your question, deconstruction. I was an English major in college, and I took a bunch of literature classes, and I took literary criticism classes. So we learned how to deconstruct things people wrote. We'd study styles, we'd study how they structured what they wrote, how they formatted the sentences they used. And it was a lot of analysis of things that are written. Mm-hmm. Sort of like what I do now with websites and auditing websites. And then I went to law school. And as your homework for law school, you do analysis of judicial opinions. You break them down into like 9 different parts. So that, again, is like auditing the website. You're analyzing. You're doing a legal analysis of a judicial opinion, what the law was, what the law is, what the facts of a case might be, how a judge ruled on that case, what his analysis of it was. So it was all also deconstruction. So when I got to websites and I had a chance to start deconstructing those, and along with Eamon Johns, I was working in a forum on SEO and usability called Creative Site Forums, and we had what we refer to as a website hospital. People could submit their site to this forum and say, okay, what can I do to make it better? We had people like the creator of Plenty of Fish submit his website. And we said, okay, get rid of the really stupid looking dolphin in the background and put some other fish. And he listened to us. He made his site very findable. Mm-hmm. Which can make a real difference for anybody putting together a website who wants some success with it.
Speaking of fish, I mean, your brand, I mean, I don't know if it was on purpose, because when I was looking at some research, and I also found that, Go Fish Digital came way after, right, SEO by the Sea. And
Right.
what's the references with all this SeaWorld?
I grew up on the Jersey Shore. We used to go fishing and crabbing all the time when I was like 5 years old, and I just loved it. So after going to the first couple conferences, SEO conferences, search engine strategies, like 2005 and so, and realizing how much they cost to attend, to pay to be a guest, and so on, to actually travel to places, I said, I'm going to put together a free conference where the people who sign up to attend can also speak. It seemed like a good idea. At the time, I was working for an agency in Havre Grace, Maryland, which is right on the shore, right? So I said, okay, I'll build a blog, and I'm looking out the window at the office we were in, overlooked the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay, and there were a couple sailboats bouncing up and down on the bay. Said, I'll call it SEO by the sea.
There you go. Magical moment, right?
It made sense.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of events, like you said, you
Right.
actually started like a free event instead of your own and got like a community together?
Well, that was the inspiration for the website SEO by the Sea. I was going to have a free event. I made it open to people. I got some attendees. We took a skipjack, which is a type of boat that people hunted oysters in, and took that on the Chesapeake, toured around, talked about SEO, and it turned out okay. I ended up, after the event, with the website that I wasn't doing anything with. I said, okay, I'm going to do something with this, and I'll continue to blog to it. I'm going to write about patents.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept up at it.
Mm-hmm.
After a year of doing that, Search Engine Journal ran a contest where they had people vote on websites, and I won a vote for best technical website after a year. So I said, this is encouraging. I'll keep on doing this.
There you go. I mean, so back to your patents. I was
Right.
when I was doing research. I found like SEO Power Suite just recently wrote a blog this week. I don't know if you read it. They've named like the top 10 patents you should pay attention to, and they kind of cited you. And I'm curious, in your mind, what do you think us SEOs should pay attention to? What maybe like the most important patent, maybe top 3 patents that you think that we should also pay attention to?
That changes over time. I ran a series of 10 posts about 6 or 7 years ago called Top 10 SEO Patents. And they're not the same ones in that blog post. I looked at that post you're referring to, and I have written about 9 of the 10 patents they covered in that post.
Mm-hmm.
There was the first one they wrote about called clustering content. I didn't write about. The rest of them I did. But there have been changes over time. Recently, in 2012, Google introduced the Knowledge Graph.
Mm-hmm.
They were working their way up towards more semantic-type SEO. In the years earlier than the Knowledge Graph, they had something they called the Browsable Fact Repository. They wrote about in 2005, and it was part of the annotation framework. An SEO engineer from Google named Andrew Hogue, was in charge of this program called the annotation framework. He had a resume of his online, and he wrote about the project. He was in charge of 12 or 13 employees at Google who were writing patents about semantic-related, object-oriented search. Things like Google Maps, which isn't based on links, it's based on citations. It's based on attributes of entities. And local
Had to put that in there.
local businesses are local entities.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind Google Maps was to build a semantic-type search. It was sort of a proof of concept of what search could be. And I don't know if organic search at Google is moving closer to what Google Maps is, but I think it's inspired by it to some degree. So I started writing about patents at the forum I worked at in 2004. And when I started writing about them into blog, most of them were based on organic SEO, but there were a few local type SEO patents too. And as we moved along, there were things that mentioned things like named entities and grew closer to the knowledge graph. Described how Google, instead of crawling web pages and links between pages, would learn about facts and crawl facts and learn about attributes related to those facts. And Google's moved in that direction. In the last year or so, we've seen a lot more patents related to machine learning, where they talk about vectors. I published a post this morning about speaker identification vectors, where Google might learn about the vocal characteristics of people who have podcasts and so on, and say, this is this person, this is this person. We can tell the difference between the two based upon the features of their voices. So
I had to drop another one. You're dropping bombs all day,
right.
Bill. I gotta keep
So the idea is they're actually indexing, and to use their phrases from 2012 when they introduced the knowledge graph, they're introducing real world objects. So speakers are real world objects. So they're not just indexing title tags and headings and so on. They're introducing they're indexing the sounds of people's voices and how they talk, how they pause, what they talk about, how quickly they talk. They did the same thing earlier with something called author vectors, where they were indexing how people write, what their style like, what they wrote about habits. So they're actually looking at things that aren't necessarily related to what's on web pages, but say the words that an author uses, the speech that a speaker produces. These are the types of things they're indexing now. So it's more entity related in that it's specific to the speaker. And they did another one. They did another one earlier this year, which was about website representation vectors, where it said every website's a little bit different. They have their own unique features. We're going to classify them. So they classified based on industry and niches. They said, okay, they're medical websites, but there aren't just medical websites. They're medical websites done by experts at medicine, doctors. They're websites done by apprentices at medicine, and those are usually medical students. And there are websites done by lay people in medicine, people who maybe have experienced different illnesses like diabetes. And they're going to try to find people who write about things like how to live with diabetes, what a good diabetes diet might be. And these don't necessarily have to be medical experts. So if you want a website that deals with something like how to treat diabetes, you'll look for the doctor's website. You'll want to find that. If you want to find a website that talks about what's the best diet for somebody with diabetes, you want one of the lay people's websites, maybe a chef who also writes about diabetic diets.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the power of AI is getting pretty crazy here.
You had asked me about image ranking, because I just written a patent about ranking images.
Actually, well, image ranking and also video. You wrote a post on Goldfish Digital on your video optimization. I want to get your thought on the power of video and how it's coming along now, and how popular it's becoming. And talk about your post on that video optimization, because I feel like even just this week, SEM Rush put out a 5-hour SEO YouTube webinar. And believe it or not, I was paying attention. I had it playing in the background, and if I had step out in meetings, there's some good stuff there. So, what is your take on video and video optimization?
Okay, a brief experiment I did about 5 years ago was I watched a lot of videos and looked at the transcripts of those videos to see how many things they get right, how many things they get wrong. I found one video free of mistakes. It was Barack Obama State of the Union address. And it looked like somebody had gone back in, edited the transcript to correct everything. And I looked at about 300 videos, and of the 300, that State of the Union address was the only one without errors. The rest of them had all kinds of errors. I've recently asked people on the Bill and Eamon's Hangout what their experience has been with transcripts recently. And a couple of people who joined me on the show said they've been impressed by the lack of errors and mistakes in transcripts recently. And I think I agree with that. So the speaker identification vector approach studies videos to learn about speakers. The patent says we're learning from looking at videos and analyzing speakers on those. So another patent I wrote about recently was about an updated patent on searching for quotes from entities. And previously, when you ask Google something like, who said, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning"? Well, the correct answer is Robert Duvall in the movie Apocalypse Now. And in the past, they would have looked at something like a Wikipedia to try to find the identity of that quote. When they do a continuation patent, that means they update the patent saying, no, we're not using the method behind this patent anymore. We've changed it. And sometimes the changes are minor. In this one, they said they didn't say we're looking at knowledge graphs anymore or knowledge bases. They said we're analyzing audio on videos. And I believe I understand why they're doing that. When somebody asks, who said, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, they're not actually asking if it's Robert Duvall saying that. What they're asking is, I'd like to see that video of that guy saying that.
There you go. Look at that. You keep dropping it. You're calling it a war up in here. I mean, we're getting some chatter here in the chat, and they're talking about they're talking about your image patent that you wrote about. I actually haven't read it yet, so I'm curious. Maybe you can give me a quick, brief overview on this new image post that you just posted about.
Okay, so in the past, when you tried to optimize an image, you would try to optimize specific things, right? For instance, the words that appeared on the page with the image, the alt text, a caption, the file name for the image. And these are things that would tell you about what the image was about. You would look at the page that the image was on, what the title of the page was, what associated text on the page about the image, near the image, might be. And those types of things would tell you about what the image is. So, quick aside, I did SEO for a limousine company, and the limo page, one of the limo pages I was working on was about high school students taking a limo to the prom. And the owner of the site had put a picture of a young couple dressed up to go to the prom, standing arm in arm. I said, well, that's good, but I'm going to suggest you get those two kids back and you take a picture of them getting into a limo, because it makes it more meaningful for that page. You're talking about high school kids taking a limo to the prom. So they should be getting into the limo to go to the prom. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to have a meaningful image. It's important for the image to be associated with the image, with the landing page that the image is on. Okay. So machine learning looks for features. They don't have this big checklist of things that you might want to optimize the image for. They say, okay, we're going to look at a large set of training data, and we're going to try to find that maybe a search engineer selects. These are the best pages with the best images. And we're going to look for features on those pages to identify what makes a good image. In this case, with this patent, they said, we're going to look at query features, we're going to look at image features, and we're going to look at landing page features. And we're going to pick the best of these three things and what works best for a specific page. You know, an ideal query should contain this, ideal image should contain these types of things based upon our training data. So when Google uses machine learning, they use training data. If they're teaching a machine learning system to rank web pages, they might say, okay, these are the best web pages that we want other sites to be like. When Amit Sehgal wrote in 2011 more guidance on building high-quality websites, he came up with 23 questions that indicated quality of a website. Would you trust this website with your credit card? That was one of the questions. So these are the types of things they might look for when they're building a training set to train something like an image rank optimization program, machine learning program. So one of the things they said in this is we're looking for image features, query features, and landing page features, and they want them to fit together. And ideally, a Google bot will crawl over their training set, pick out the landing page features and the image features, and look through query logs to get query features and try to identify what works together. And they'll come up with a set of features. They say these are types of things that we want to see when we rank pages. Then they'll grab another set of pages, and that's training data, or it's testing data. So they use training data to teach the machine learning process. Then they use the testing data to see how well it works. And they might run that through a bunch of sites and then have human evaluators, like the people who use the Quality Raters Guide, to see how well they like the results.
Yeah, man, Bill, you're dropping so many knowledge bombs. We're going over time here, but I mean, I want to make sure I do this where I've mentioned to you, like I brought this show together to help people get into SEO and like how to find their skills. But before that, I want to turn back the clock a little bit. This is something I do on the show where I'm actually turning back the clock. I'm using a 15-year-old camcorder here, but I want to bring up something where I found of you actually talking about your dream job.
Just what is your dream job? What makes a job a dream job? Well, I started talking to some people who I've known for a few years by attending meetups in Virginia involving SEO. That turned into them offering me a position as a director of search marketing. The name of the company is Go Fish Digital. I'm really excited to start working with them. One of the things that they bring to the table that I was missing out on was innovation. Actually being involved in the search community. I haven't been in as many hangouts like this in the past year or so as I've wanted to. I've been at some conferences, but would have liked to have been involved in more. And I'm looking forward to those things.
So, Bill, I mean, that was over almost 7 years ago we had, and that's when you're still like Go Fish Digital, and that's your story, like how you were using. It looks like you were networking with a lot of people to land your SEO job. I'm curious, so like, what are other tips that you can give to SEO or people who want to become SEO professionals? Maybe they're already digital marketing, but they want to get more into it. What skills should they do? What are some other tips that you can give to other SEO professionals?
Okay, so networking makes a good difference. If you're really new to the field and you want to meet people and gain some opportunities, working for an agency is one way to learn new things quickly, because they'll throw a lot at you. They'll want you to get a lot of stuff done. And you can meet people from different agencies by going to meetups, going to SEO specific meetups, introducing yourself. It's a good way to get potential clients too. If you go to a conference as not as a speaker, but as a attendee, make sure you talk to people. I mean, these are people who are interested in the same things you are, who share the same vocabulary with you, who want to talk about the things you're there to learn about. And sharing ideas with them is not only a great way to learn something possibly, but I managed to bring back to Go Fish Digital from one conference I went to in Virginia, a really well-known client. Someone referred them to us on the basis of a conversation I had at that conference. So don't be afraid to talk to people. It's, one thing is I was heavily involved in forums for a number of years, and that's a good way to network too and meet people. Sometimes you don't meet the people you meet in a forum in person for many years. So I was involved in forums. I didn't meet many of the people in those forums for over a decade because many of them were in the UK. And I didn't go to the UK until 10 years after I started at that forum. But we went over there. We went out, about 30 of us went to a nice restaurant. We had a good meal. We spent some time together. We had been talking online for years. So the only thing new is we were talking face to face.
We have a question here that just came up. Bill.
Right.
What are the things that we should keep an eye in SEO in the coming future?
Okay, I mentioned knowledge graph, and that's a way of understanding how Google crawls facts on the web, how they associate information, relationships, links between those facts, and maybe learn about them. In local search, you've probably heard of NAP, NAP consistency, name, address, phone number. It's because Google's seen those names, addresses, and phone numbers so many times in so many places that they've developed a confidence level. This is the right place. This is the right phone number. This is the right address. That type of crawling of those facts and learning with some level of confidence is something we'll see more of. I think Google's moving away from using knowledge bases like Wikipedia to learn about things. If they can crawl the web, they can crawl newspapers every day. Say, even the sports pages, they can say, okay, today is July 24th. It's the opening day baseball, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to be in the knowledge. That's going to be in the knowledge graph. That this year opening day didn't happen until July 24th, and they're going to learn that from. They could learn that from Wikipedia, but they can learn that from the any newspaper, which is going to talk about it. They can crawl the web page. They can identify entities on that page. They can associate those entities with attributes about them, classifications about them, and they're likely going to be getting a lot of information where they answer questions, featured snippets, things like that, by crawling web pages, by crawling enterprise websites with those about pages that tell them a lot about those companies and the people who work at them. And making those rich sources of information is always a good idea. It's one of those things that maybe people might refer to as EAT, but it's not necessarily EAT. It's not a way of ranking. It's a way of supplying information that a search engine can use for answers or can use to understand things better. Google is less of a search engine these days and more of a knowledge engine. They're trying to understand how things work, how things fit together, how they're related. And that's a big move in search right now.
Yeah, I've when you brought up news, I saw that they actually added a new feature in Search Console, correct? I mean, like where you can see your news traffic. I mean, is this something that you're kind of referring to? Because it's coming out, like just like how you're saying it.
Last year, Danny Sullivan said, okay, top stories. We're not going to just rely upon AMP stories to show us top stories. We're going to grab information from sources like blogs and articles and so on for top stories. And I followed up and asked him, does that mean that speakable schema markup is no longer limited to news stuff? And he said, no, you can use speakable on any website now. Anywhere you answer a question, if you think that people should be able to hear the answer and use speakable, we can have a Google Smart Speaker read that answer to them if you mark it up with speakable.
Interesting. That's another one I didn't know about. Speakable. Man, I'm gonna have so many craters up in here. Okay, Bill. I mean, we are over time. I apologize for this. We had some great conversations here. This is something I totally appreciate you staying a lot longer. Is there anything else? How can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you? How does someone maybe be a guest on your Bill and Eamon's show? I saw that you have guests on there. Like, tell us about it and what you got going on.
Okay, so the easiest way to find me is Twitter tends to be really good. I'm Bill_Slawski there. I do the Bill and Eamon's Bogus Hangout weekly. Your chance of being a guest is more increased tremendously if you're somebody I know, you're a friend, because then we can personally invite you to it. We tend to, the concept of it is based upon old time SEO conferences like PubCon, which originated in a bar in London with a bunch of SEOs showing up without specific speakers or topics in mind. They're just talking about, this is what happened to me this week in SEO. This is the type of thing that I optimize for. We do have topics, we do talk about things, but we often talk about what our day was like. what's new in the industry, what happened to us that was unusual today.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of knowledge bombs that come out of that conversation. I pulled one out of there this week. So, I mean, there's actually a lot more. I mean, I could keep on going. Anyone out there, check out the Bill and Eamon's live show. There was even one on schema markup and FAQ where you can add a link to your schema markup, right, Bill? And you can get a clickable link there. I mean, there's so much that goes on in his show there, and a lot of knowledge bombs. I'm definitely tuning in every week just to listen and
I recently started a monthly podcast.
Oh, okay.
With Terry Van Horn. Mm-hmm. It's called The Entity Hour.
Yeah.
And it's based on knowledge-based, entity-based search.
Yeah, I actually thought that was weekly. I was like waiting for the new episode to come out. I was like, I need to pull a clip from that one because I saw you went live with that one just last week, right? That one just went live last week. Yeah.
Right. So we're going to focus on having guests for that. People we can ask questions to. Yeah.
Well, Bill, I hope you consider me your new friend and I can possibly be on there sometime. And it's great meeting you finally virtually. I mean, if we were at a conference, I would have definitely came up to you and say, hey, you inspired me to do my presentation on how I delivered it.
Well, I'm definitely going to subscribe here so I can keep up with you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you again, Bill. I appreciate everything. I'm going to go ahead and close this off. Again, I'll keep in touch, and everyone out there, thank you for coming by. I'm going to go ahead and close this off with my closing remarks. This is something that we will do weekly live, and I hope you find it informative and digestible content. I go over blogs, videos, and podcasts hours a week just to put this together and pull out the nice nuggets for you guys. Hopefully you like it. And I don't have a wrap that I did last week or a couple weeks ago, but I do. Did you know that Spotify is doing videos?
It's Friday, gotta get down on Friday.